Hey all! Welcome back to GraveyardDance.com. We hope you've been enjoying our weekly content and have been taking the time to share us on social media and by word of mouth. This week we have another true crime story that is a sickening look into the mind of a serial killer. Grab a drink and a bite to eat and sit back and relax while we bring you another tale of true crime horror. Over-the-road truck drivers are a very important part of the fabric of not just America, but most of the world. Without them, our store shelves would go empty very quickly and we would run out of most all of our basic needs. In most cases, I'd say truck drivers don't get enough credit or respect for the long hard hours they put in and deserve a huge thank you, but not so much in the case of Bruce Mendenhall. Mendenhall grew up in a small town in Crawford County, Illinois called Albion and led a somewhat dull and uneventful life. As far as we've been able to tell, he was never in trouble with the law before the events that you're about to hear about. He was married and had 2 daughters, which makes his actions against these young women even more infuriating. How could someone raise daughters only to hurt others? What a jerk! Anywho, Bruce wanted to get out and see the country, and working at a factory or regular 9 to 5 wouldn't allow that, so he went and got his CDL license and became an over-the-road trucker. Just how long he'd been having fantasies of hurting women or how long he actually had been doing so is unknown, but it was in Nashville, Tennessee, the city of music, that it all began to unravel for him, and thankfully so. His reign of terror was about to come to an end. On June 26, 2007, at around 1 in the morning, when a security guard was patrolling a lot for criminal activity, stumbled upon the nude corpse of a female who was shot dead, laid out and posed by the back fence of the parking lot where the semi-trucks parked. 25-year-old Sarah Holbert was a single mother of 2 small children. She had been struggling with drug addiction for quite some time and was in and out of rehab and trying to get her life together. For a while, she would seem to be doing better. She had lost custody of her children and unfortunately went back to her addictions. Sadly, one of the ways she made the money to do this was by selling herself at the local truck stop. Apparently, there was a hole in the fence in the back of the lot near the trucks that allowed sex workers to come and go with ease. This was where she was found. A strange boot print was found near her body and seminal evidence was found inside her. They ran a DNA test, but there was nothing in police databases to compare it to. They also took her fingerprints, which gave them their victim's name, which was Sarah. Another thing they found out about this case was the lack of blood at the scene. If she had been shot there, where was the blood? Sarah also has several other injuries, like a large portion of her buttocks that had been removed, yet no blood. They knew now that she had been killed elsewhere and dumped there. Being in the area that they were, they automatically knew they would most likely be looking for a semi-truck driver. They pulled the video surveillance footage from the time surrounding the body being found and saw a yellow tractor trailer pull in the lot, go back to where the body was dumped and leave, all without stopping or buying anything from the truck stop. Would this be their guy? Her family was called in to identify her body. After being questioned by the police as to if they had any idea who may have done this to her, they exclaimed that Sarah had been trying to get clean, but had went back to her drug habit recently and had been seen in the company of 2 local men who they thought was her pimp. After being questioned, the men finally admitted to being her pimp. They did deny having anything to do with her death though. They claimed that Sarah had gotten into an argument with them and left the vehicle that they were all in. They thought she had went inside to cool off, but after not seeing her or being able to find her, they finally left and just figured she had left with the truck driver. Somehow, the police detectives managed to prove their statements and the young men were cleared of her murder. The police turned to the FBI for help to see if there had been any other murders who matched this one, and they soon had a match. On June 6, 2007, a 48-year-old woman from Lebanon, Tennessee named Samantha Winters was found in a dumpster outside a Pilot Travel Center. She was a sex worker and had actually been working the lot where Sarah had been seen at about the time of the previous victim being found. Police believe she was picked up the night that Sarah was killed and brought to Lebanon, where she too was killed and dumped. Forensics also matched the gun's bullets back to the same .22 caliber pistol that had killed Sarah. The FBI also had 2 more murders that matched these in 2 other states. They knew now that they were looking for a truck-driving serial killer but still didn't have a suspect or name, yet that is. One of the two matches was that of 43-year-old Sherry Drinkard. Just like the others, she was dumped naked and posed in Lake Station, Indiana, but this time on the side of the road, and just like the others, died of a .22 caliber shot to the head. On January 29, 2007, in Georgia, another woman was found with the same MO. Deborah Ann Glover, a mother of 5 children, was found with a .22 caliber shot to the head in a car park. Just a few hours earlier, she had made a strange call to her kids telling them that she would always love them but for them not to call her back. Hours later, she would be found dead. Just like Sarah Holbert, Deborah was a sex worker with a drug problem who was drastically trying her best to turn her life around and had been making some progress towards kicking the habit for good. She ended up going down the wrong path and somehow ended up on the wrong side of Bruce Mendenhall. 4 women were now found scattered across several states. All of them were sex workers, all of them were found naked or posed, and all of them were shot in the head with the same .22 pistol. Detective Pat Postiglione knew the best chance they had was to go back to the original scene of the first known crime and wait to see if he could locate a truck that fit the description of the one who was seen entering and leaving the lot on the surveillance camera the night they found Sarah Holbert's body. As he was headed toward Nashville, he spotted a truck that matched the description heading toward the truck stop. The detective followed him and called for backup and told them what he had seen. When the truck pulled to a stop, Detective Postiglione walked up and knocked on the door of the cab and got no reply at first. After a second or third attempt, a man looked out the window and claimed he had been asleep, which the detective knew was a lie. He had seen him pull in. When he identified himself as a detective, Bruce Mendenhall stepped down out of the truck to talk. As Detective Postiglione told Mendenhall what the questions were about, he asked him when the last time he and his truck was at the station, and he claimed it was in May. As the men were talking, the detective spotted blood on Mendenhall's arm and on the inside of the door of his truck. He even somehow managed to talk Mendenhall into providing a swab of DNA. He asked Mendenhall if he could look inside the truck, and reluctantly, he agreed. Inside the truck were a pair of work boots that seemed to match the footprint at the original crime scene. More than that, there was a trash bag full of bloody clothes. Mendenhall gave the excuse that he had cut himself trying to enter the truck a few hours prior, but the only problem was, he had no such injuries. It wasn't looking too good for old Bruce. He soon changed his story and claimed that a sex worker had been in his truck the night before and cut herself. Yep, sure. He asked Mendenhall if he had any weapons on him, and sure enough, there was a gun in the cab of the semi. 5 points if you can guess what it was. Yep, a .22 caliber. Postiglione by this time knew he had his guy. He asked him point blank if this was the truck they were looking for. Mendenhall didn't say anything at first. After a while, he looked down and shrugged and said, "If you say it is." The detective asked again if he was the killer, and Mendenhall again said, "If you say so." Kind of a strange answer for someone if they had been innocent, don't you think? Anywho, Mendenhall was arrested and the truck was searched, where they found hundreds of pieces of evidence, including blood evidence, knives, sex toys and ties to subdue the victims, as well as handcuffs. The real horror of what they had found would come from the crime lab in form of DNA evidence. So far, they knew of only 4 victims. The blood evidence found in the cab of the truck came from 7 different women. Who and where were the other victims? His neighbors and family were all questioned. The Mendenhalls lived on Pine Street in Albion, Illinois. His wife was blind from severe diabetes. His daughters couldn't believe the accusations against him. They claimed he had always been just a normal, loving dad, but his neighbors all had a different view of him. None of them wanted to go near his home because they all claimed he was too weird. In 1997, he ran for mayor and came in last place. Despite his quirks, he appeared to be just a family man. There were no previous arrests or signs of any type of violent offenses. The town couldn't believe that one of their own could do something like this. While being questioned, Mendenhall again surprised detectives by waiving his right to an attorney and by saying yes to being questioned. He gave another stunner when he came out and admitted to dumping the bodies, but claimed he never killed anyone. It was 3 guys named Richie, David and Terry. He claimed that every truck stop he went to, they followed him, and that every time they did, a dead prostitute would end up in his truck. Sure pal. Detectives looked into this claim and found out that the men really did exist. They all denied any involvement and gave their DNA and prints. After a thorough investigation, it came to light that the men all had minor altercations with Mendenhall and that there was absolutely no evidence of them being involved or even near the crime scenes. Apparently, Mendenhall was trying to frame them for his crimes. Nice guy, huh? When they confronted Mendenhall with the evidence they had and asked him again if he was the killer, he stopped talking to the police and asked for a lawyer. When they ran his fuel receipts, it put him at the exact location of every murder at about the time of them being dumped out. They still didn't understand why a family man with no prior history of violence, a man who had a wife and girls of his own, would do such a cold-hearted thing. He was charged with criminal homicide and taken to the Metro Davidson County Jail. He soon went on trial where he pleaded not guilty. The prosecutors did a great job at not only detailing the evidence, but also making sure the jury saw the humanity of Sarah, with whom he was on trial for at this time. He ended up getting a life sentence, which meant that he would have to do at least 60 of those years. He was never getting out. While he was incarcerated, his wife passed away and he received thousands of dollars in insurance money. Instead of looking out for his kids or maybe trying to think of a way to repay his victims' families out of remorse, no, not this guy. He offered $15,000 to some inmates who were about to get out to kill the 3 men he originally blamed for the crimes. He also tried to have Detective Postiglione and a Detective Lee Freeman murdered as well. In 2010, he went on trial for those charges, trying to get the 3 men he blamed killed as well as the 2 officers. For some odd reason, they found Mendenhall not guilty of trying to have the detectives killed, but guilty of trying to have the other 3 killed. He still ended up getting 30 years, 10 for each guy he tried to have killed, so now he was up to at least 90 years. Considering he was born in '51, he was never going to get out of prison alive. He was soon indicted on murder charges and abuse of a corpse of Samantha Winters, and he received another life sentence there. He tried several tactics to divert blame and to appeal, but it was all a hoax that thankfully the police, courts and jury saw right through. By the following year, he was believed to have been linked to another murder of another sex worker, a young woman named Letitia Yvonne Milliken. Milliken had last been seen in Nashville, Tennessee on March 14, 2007. She was living in Tent City, a homeless camp off Hermitage Avenue. Her family reported her missing on June 26. Her DNA was matched to some of the blood found in Mendenhall's truck. Ironically, the same day that Letitia was reported missing, the first known victim, Sarah Holbert, was being found. As if all this wasn't bad enough, 32-year-old Karma Purpura, who was a mother to 2 children, came up missing, and she was also known to frequent truck stops. Fearing that she had been one of his victims, they took a swab from both parents and matched it to some of the bloody clothing inside Mendenhall's truck. They had also found her clothing, bank card and phone inside Mendenhall's truck. The last time she was seen was at the Flying J truck stop near Indianapolis, Indiana. On August 15, 2011, at the 8-mile marker of the Louis B. Nunn Parkway in Kentucky, human remains were found. They were those of Karma Purpura. Not long after, he was charged with the murder of Lucille Carter, who went by the name Gretna, who was from Birmingham, Alabama. She was left naked in a trash bin with a bag taped over her head and shot with a .22 that was linked to all the others. Although Gretna was the last known victim of Mendenhall, we can't be sure that there are far more out there who have died at his hands. The victims mentioned above are so far only his known ones. It's hard for me to understand why anyone would want to do this to anyone, regardless of their profession or lifestyle. His daughters claim he never really spoke badly of those who worked as sex workers, so what was his reasons? We'd love to hear your thoughts down below. As always, we greatly appreciate a click to our subscribe button and a like on our video. It helps a lot. We're getting close to our 100th video release, so I hope you'll go to our channel at graveyarddance.com and go back and rewatch a lot of our older stuff. Social links to follow are down below. I really love hearing from you all. Thanks again, till next time.